Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another REHI podcast episode. And today I'm honored to bring to you the Estonian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Margus Tsahkna. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for receiving me.
And Margus, I understand almost immediately after this podcast you'll be going to Georgia.
Exactly, I'm going to airport and I'm flying to Georgia together with Latvian, Lithuanian, and Iceland foreign ministers. And let's see what is going to happen then.
I heard that Georgian parliament members don't actually want to talk to, but the president will be receiving you, but the parliament members are very cautious.
Not all parliament members. Let's see what is going to happen during this voting. The final voting will be 13th of May about this law. But I hope that we will be received well, and also we're going to hopefully meet with the prime minister and foreign minister as well. But I think that it's a rightful position for the parliament members to explain and to express as well what they are thinking. But the case is very serious in the meaning the Georgian future, whether it's like towards European Union or whether it's towards Russian influence. So this is a case why we are going there.
And what would be the Estonian side to influence the parliament? Of course, I understand we are European Union, we are NATO. Of course, we know how our people think, but the people outside in the street are protesters who want to change the current country's direction in Georgia. So, as an Estonian foreign minister, would you encourage these people to take up more action?
One case is, of course, we are foreign ministers and we are visiting the other country, and it's very delicate question how much we can intervene or how to say jump into the domestic policy, because finally, of course, the question is whether the Georgian people are making decisions, but it's obvious that there is a big conflict. And I have a very long background back to the history with Georgia, and as well for Estonia. We have been very supportive to Georgian initiatives to move forward to European Union as NATO as well. And it's a sad picture what I see right now, because there is no logical reason and real reason why they have to adopt this particular law about this foreign agents. It's exactly the same thing that is already in power in Russia. So I cannot understand as well the Georgian government will behind that, because just the end of the last year, before the Christmas, European Union decided about the enlargement question that Georgia will be the official candidate country, and the Georgian government really pushed it heavily. So our question, not from Estonian side but also from EU side, is that why they are now taking the steps exactly the opposite way. And this is a historical momentum. European Union is not just an open door, the club that everybody can jump in, but these countries which were nominated as a candidate countries, they have to fulfill as well their promises. Mm-hmm. And this is not the fulfilling the promises. It is the opposite way. So our message all together with these foreign ministers we are going to Georgia is that the Georgian government is not actually fulfilling these promises they gave us as well for European Union. So they gave these promises not only to us but also their own people. That's the problem right now, and we see the rallies on the streets, and also the violence in the meaning the using force from the police against their own people.
I see these videos. I see police going more brutal and brutal by the day. They don't even care that cameras are filming them now, and I would say it is the protesters who are being peaceful right now. And I, as a person, as a democratic person from European Union, from Estonia, feel like if my government is going against the direction that I am voting so heavily, and it's so bad for my future children, for example, it's my duty to go and fight for what I believe. And I would say Georgian people have the right to do more. Would you agree that the protesters would need to take the next step against the police?
I'm not supporting violence, whatever violence it is. But of course, Georgian people, they have all the right to go on the streets and say what they think about the governmental decisions. I hope that this violence will be not be wider or being upscaled, of course. And I'm not asking that Georgian people should go and I know the conquest the parliament and so on. It doesn't work. blood on the streets is always bad. But what I'm encouraging all together with other ministers is that the Georgian government must understand what kind of responsibility they have, and also the parliament, the majority, the political parties, in the meaning of the Georgian future. And whatever excuses they're behind, this is a historical momentum for Georgian people mainly.
This is the turning point, the crossroads. Actually, Ilya was just telling me before the podcast that the 2008, it would have taken a few strong reactions to the Russian invasion force to show that this is not the way to go, and you cannot do this bluff anymore in the world, that this would have perhaps held the Ukrainian war from happening. Do you think now is this moment to show, because we know where the money flows in Georgia, the promises to the European Union by the government were one, and now the actions are the other, and there is some kind of big businessmen and oligarchs who are funding all of this, as much as I know. In my eyes, it's time for strong and aggressive steps right now on the crossroads to set the future for this country and the outcome. But if they fail this and the protests calm down, their law will be accepted. The next option would be only after Russia loses.
The majority, the party which is actually leading the country, they have announced publicly that they will adopt the law anyways. Now we're going to meet as well the president, and president has announced that he will not declare publicly this law, but by the constitution, then the law is going back to the parliament again, and the final saying is by the parliament. This is like the formal part. But I was very close to the Georgian when before the 2008 when Russia invaded, and Georgia did a great job about the way and the next steps and different reforms about to become closer to the European Union, also the NATO. But then was the lack of political will from European side as well. So we lost the momentum, and what we have seen and witnessed within the neighboring countries of Russia, if you are weak, if you are in the so-called neutral zone, it's a green light for Putin to go in, and he's going in with militaries. So it happened in Georgia 2008, it happened in Ukraine 2014, and now we have already the so-called the second and very violent part of full-scale aggression in Ukraine already more than 2 years. So my position is very clear, that neutrality policy towards and close to the Russian borders is a green light for Putin to move in militarily. And the best proof is not actually the Ukrainians or the Georgian people's will to join NATO or European Union, but even more the Swedish people's decision to join NATO. Not even Finnish people, because Finland has more than 1,300 kilometers common border with Russia. But the Swedish people, they made a decision voluntarily after more than 200 years of neutrality, having no long border with Russia, to join NATO, because they feel in a very secure position that Russia is a threat and will remain the threat. So the same understanding is for everybody, that if you are the so-called close country or neighboring country to Russia, neutrality is actually the worst case ever. That is a saying that where is the most dangerous place? The most dangerous place is to sit in the waiting room of NATO. Not being in, but not being out, but then it's a green light for Putin, and Putin is using that. And the weird thing is that we have in the Western world, not in Estonia, because we have known it already more than 2 decades. I was called as well as a Russophobic, crazy politician from Estonia, because we have been talking the same things about Russia and Putin already years, that aggression will come if we are weak, if we are not very concrete. The weird thing is that Putin has announced publicly already years what is his plan. And we always somehow considering that actually what is the Putin's plan? Putin has declared it publicly. I'm going to restore the Soviet Union empire. And he's just doing it. He's doing the soft power, but now he's doing already since 2008 the military power, the aggression, to commit his plan. And still we have plenty of these politicians in the Western world who are thinking that actually, what actually is the Putin plan? Putin plan is public. He's very transparent in the meaning. It's public. He's just fulfilling this plan. And we must understand that we are the part of the plan.
So I do agree completely. Neutrality zone is green light for Putin, and showing strength is the only language he speaks. Actually, it's also the same way in this kind of Russian mindset on the street. You can see if some kind of talks have the same mindset that you cannot talk to them. You either have to run away or you have to fight. But in this sense, very recently there surfaced information that Estonia does not rule out sending troops to Ukraine in some kind of rear area duties. What do you think about that? Is this the way to show strength to Putin, to cross his red lines?
The idea behind all that is that we are too often, as a Western part of the world, we are saying what we are not doing. Every day we are saying we are not sending troops, we are not supporting Ukraine with Taurus, we are not doing this and this and this. And this is a weakness in the meaning of why we are explaining what we are not doing, why we are not considering to do whatever it takes that Ukraine will win the war. Whatever Ukrainians are asking, that's the case. So Estonia has been always advocating and supporting Ukraine as heavily as we could since the first day. We actually gave all this, our artillery and also the howitzers to Ukraine in the first day. And we have given 1.5% of GDP military support, and we'll do more. And there has always been from the Russian side some kind of threats that now the escalation will come. And we as a Western part, we are like afraid of escalation. My question is, what is the escalation if it's not escalation already? Because I don't believe that Putin will use any kind of nuclear power there, because military ways it's nonsense and politically it's a suicide. So, but Putin is playing in our fears, and that's the weakness of our part. About the boots on the ground, we remember the President Macron announcement. Let's consider that. And we didn't say that we are not considering that. But actually what we do is that we are not planning to send troops into the Ukraine, but we are planning to do what Ukrainians are asking us to do. And Ukrainians are not asking NATO or allies troops on the ground. They don't ask it. They ask the very quick response and support the military ways. They need ammunition, they need air defense, they need weapons, they need money. And this is what we are ready to give. But I see already as well that Putin is a bit like worried that there are somewhere discussions, maybe, about sending troops in, because Putin is afraid of NATO. Putin is afraid of this kind of power, what we have. But we have no plan right now, just let's move in, because Ukrainians are not asking that. Ukrainians are fighting not only for us, not only for their own freedom, but they are fighting instead of us. And I've said many times, like an example, when I was defense minister of Estonia, like 2016-17, we saw 120,000 troops ready to go within 48 hours, the other side of the border, from Russian side to Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. These troops are not existing anymore. Most of them they have sent to Ukraine. And Ukraine, they fought instead of us. So we must understand that Ukraine is fighting not only for us as well as a values and democracy and everything, but instead of us. And that's the reason why it's the most efficient and cheapest way to support Ukraine, whatever it takes. Because otherwise, Putin will continue. And we may have the hot conflict, the military aggression in European territory, European Union or NATO. So this is not a good thing.
How do you think, I see no fear in your eyes. I see that you speak that Putin plays on fear, and that works in the Western Europe. I'm not afraid. You are not afraid. You talk about not fearing the escalation. How to communicate that mindset and that understanding to the Western European leaders?
By acting, I think. I think that the Estonian foreign policy is now bigger than ever before, because unfortunately we were right before, and we are now showing with our steps that we are doing more actually with what is our weight. About military support, this is one thing. But also there are many other topics like how can we use the frozen assets of Russia? I feel, and I know that 4 months ago I felt like alone. Nobody wanted to listen it. But tomorrow Estonian parliament will adopt the law, the first law draft in Europe. How can we actually use the frozen assets of Russia, the private and public, even during the war? And what we see as well, that the US has jumped in heavily, because part of this 61 billion Ukraine package is covered by the Russian frozen assets, also UK and many other countries in Europe as well. So a couple of months ago, nobody wanted to talk about it. Now the decision on EU level has decided that we are going to use the profits of the frozen assets. And also we are giving this money to Ukraine for military reasons. They can buy military equipment and whatever. But the next step is as well to use the real frozen assets of Russia. And it hits Putin and mainly the oligarchs heavily. So why I'm explaining that is that we are not only talking about boots on the ground, not boots on the ground. This is communication, and Putin hates that. But we are talking about the other initiatives that we can do. It's important for Ukrainians, their frozen assets, using them. It's important as well to Putin. And also, it is important to our taxpayers, because they are asking the rightful question, why we have to pay, support Ukraine, instead of using the Putin's and aggressor money. We have like hundreds of billions them. So I really do hope that this kind of initiative we started a year ago, it will reach on that level, that G7 meeting, which take place in June, they will decide it as well politically. US is pushing together with the Great Britain. It's very heavily. So these are like the different aspects what we can do, and we do it.
About 2 months ago, I was in a Northern American tour, Canada and US, and I spoke to Canada senators and members of parliament. Most of them were telling me that they are all trying to push, both parties, trying to push the taking of the frozen assets or the profits of the frozen assets. And they said that the only other country pushing so heavily and even more is Estonia. And that's supposed to be like this friendly kind of competition. Who actually does it first successfully? So who did it?
It's not a competition. Actually, Canadian Parliament adopted this law before. But the bad thing that they have not used it in practical life yet. I really do hope that they will do it. I was as well the end of the last year on my visit to Canada, and we were talking about that because our law systems are totally different as well. So we are actually creating the draft and opportunity which is following European law. This is a different system. But what I see is the fear that what if we are doing that? We are taking the Russian frozen assets, and many other countries, they are thinking that what will happen with our assets in Russia? What will happen with our businesses in Russia? And also, I think that very, straightforward to say, Russian money talks in Europe a lot, because within the last 20 years, Russian capital has flown out from Russia, and they have found their legal place in Europe, all different capitals, and they have power. And this is one I have noticed during the last half a year. Every time, if we are moving forward with the one step or another step with the using frozen assets topic, the very painful reaction from Russia is coming, because they are afraid of that. And finally, to say about this is a clear message for everybody that business as usual, as it was before the Russian aggression to Ukraine, it's not going to come back. It's not going to continue. And this is a mental set I would like to change in Europe. The business as usual never comes back, because Russia will remain a threat. Russia will remain as an aggressor, and we have to deal with that. And we cannot be afraid, because fear is something that Putin is using against us. Fear. And you can see from your eyes, if you talk to somebody, that if he's under that, having a fear, then you can go further. I was seeing some kind of guidebook about negotiations with Russians, which was delivered from US in the beginning of 90s to Estonian government, how to negotiate with Russians. And the main rule was, if no compromises. If you do any compromise, this is a new red line for Russia they are pushing. So the witness, it's coming from the past. Every time we haven't reacted properly, Russia is taking the next step. Russia is taking the next step. We didn't act properly after the 2008 aggression to Georgia at all. We didn't do anything about the aggression which started 2014 in Ukraine. Now we have a war in Europe, and if we are not finishing this war, it will come to Europe. It's clear. because it is based to our fears, and it is based to Putin's public plan. Restore the Soviet Union or even more.
I think this guidebook, as you said, would be mandatory reading, like in preschools for children, would be for Scholz.
It was done during the Ronald Reagan times, actually.
Yes?
Yeah, because he was a tough guy.
They already know this back at the time, and this would be mass printed and sent it to all of the leaders in Europe.
I don't know whether it's like the top secret, but the idea was there.
But I would just like to clarify one thing out. I think I understand, but just for the viewer also, not the frozen assets, but the profits from the frozen assets. Do I understand correctly that this is the proceeds that the money is generating? The money is sitting and it's generating revenue, and that money is sent to Ukraine?
The revenues, yes, we are going to use that because it's not harming the so-called the right or protection of the private property in the meaning. So this decision has been made. In Europe, it's approximately 3 to 5 billion euros per year.
Whoa.
But we are talking about frozen assets. They're like 300 billion. So we must use them as well. So decision has made, and this money now, the profits, they're going to Ukraine, and also we are going to use it as a military support. So we can buy military equipment and whatever using this money.
What are the other Estonian initiatives that I know Estonia in the foreign affairs is pushing way above its weight? What are the other great initiatives that we are, let's say, teaching the world what they should do?
Of course, the priority list is like this, that we must support military Ukraine very quickly. We initiated more than a year ago at the European Union level 1 million rounds of ammunition. Unfortunately, it's not fulfilled, but the promises are there. So, but a year ago already we made a commitment, and also we asked all the others and also European Union to do the commitment about 1 million rounds of ammunition. Also, I'm really, really happy about this Czech initiative about ammunition, but we are adding as well, because we have capabilities as well about making procurements, and we have ties everywhere to buy ammunition. So not to compete with Czechs, but we are working closely together. So we are able to buy a lots of ammunition from the third countries. And the reason is not only because of Ukraine, because we were investigating how can we and from where we can buy ammunition for ourselves. It's like a top secret information publicly that this year Estonia is one of the biggest buyer of ammunition in Europe. And it shows something as well, that something is not right, because we have 1.3 million people. And of course, all these kind of actions, what we are taking about the leadership crimes, about the aggression crimes of Putin. I don't know how much people are thinking about that after the Second World War, we had Nuremberg Tribunal, and the leaders were committed in the meaning of aggression crimes. These are leadership crimes. But now we cannot do anything with Putin about the aggression crimes against Ukraine because they have immunity. So what we are pushing heavily to form the special tribunal that Putin and also the Prime Minister of Russia and also the Foreign Minister of Russia will be put under the special tribunal hearing, and because they have committed the aggression crime, which is a leadership crime. And this is, we are lacking of support on the Western world, because everybody is afraid about their own gray shadows from the past and so on. And that's the moral problem. If we are not going to finish this war in the proper ways, not only military, but also the committing these people, they are guilty about aggression. And if we are saying that actually they are immune about that by international law, it shows that we are very weak. So we were stronger after the Second World War, but in the 21st century, we are not able to do that. That is one thing, actually, what we are doing in Estonia.
I might not understand the diplomatic necessity of the UN, but is there any merits of kicking Russia out of the UN, or is it very necessary so that they remain?
UN is the interesting body and the Security Council, mainly. And it was created after the Second World War based on this kind of agreements between, all the other countries. Somehow it doesn't work anymore, because Security Council member can use the veto for everything. And also kicking out Russia is a question from the Security Council, though it is impossible. But what we can do, and what we did when the aggression against Ukraine started, was the General Assembly voting. And then there was a huge majority. We decided that Russia is committing aggression against Ukraine. And we can use as well the General Assembly to form the special tribunal about the aggression crimes, about the Putin crimes. But there is no political will from the G7 and many other countries, Western countries, who are not, they don't want to do it right now. But also now the situation is much more complicated because we have the situation in Gaza. So it is dividing a lot, and the world situation is much more complicated than we're thinking.
Situation in Gaza is in a separate situation, but in my limited understanding, it is the same situation, since the money flows the same way from Moscow to Iran, from Iran to Hamas, and then we have the situation in Gaza. It is the new forming of axes, the global south, that is one unified front, I would say, against now the NATO world and rule-based order. Would you agree?
Yes, I don't know exactly how much Russia is, organizing all these attacks against Israel, but he's supporting, definitely. It's obvious. They have very close ties with Iran, and also Iran is supporting Russia by military ways, and we all know these Iranian drones which are flowing everywhere. So this is obvious that Putin gains a lot of credits because of this new conflict. And Russia and Putin is interested about that we are tied to all the different conflicts globally. So of course it is serving the Putin's will and the wish in the meaning of tying us. But we have to walk and chew the gum at the same time. But somehow, even from the news, the Gaza news are maybe even more important sometimes than the situation in Ukraine. And I've said as well that, today's communication, the communication is personal, using the social media and so on. We don't know exactly whether this is like the fake news or not fake news, but anyways, Russia is using these narratives very well. But the problem is that we are sitting like in the chairs like this, as an example, and we are like imagining globally that we are watching the war movie. We are like just
consuming,
consuming, enjoying, and now it's already like normal war movies like 2 hours 30 minutes, and now the western part of the world sometimes thinking that it's already like 2 hours and 10 minutes. Let's finish this because I would like to see another movie, and let's wrap it up. But this is not the war movie, it's a real life. And if we are going to lose the war, if Ukraine is going to lose the war, then we will have the real war movie in Europe, and we don't like it at all. So this understanding that, the societies are getting tired of that. It's not very interesting anymore. Today maybe 1,000 troops were killed. No news. But this is dramatical thing. So that's the case we have to fight against.
It is. This point is exactly through my skin because I work with, it sounds bad, but I work with selling this war. Otherwise, the only way I can funnel donators' money to Ukraine to buy trucks is if I sell better than other people. And if I sell better, I have to say, bigger battle, bigger losses, da-da-da-da-da. But it creates the illusion of the war movie. Exactly. I'm tired of these losses. Every day 1,000. I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
It's not real. It's just numbers, but it's actually real. And and if I break this illusion, I immediately lose viewers. I immediately lose donations for Ukraine. It's very difficult to go on that line.
It is. And also, we have domestic problems everywhere. We are having now the US elections, which are defining a lot in the future. So I'm really, really happy that this 61 billion package actually came finally. But actually, US was out from the game. Really. And I was worried not only about the $61 billion, the package, but also the position of US on international level, because they were losing this position. But now, hopefully, they are back in business in the meaning that they actually can commit as well. They have really act and giving the promises. But we don't know what is going to happen in US. I was in a visit just a couple of months ago to US as well. And of course, we asked and I'm trying to understand what is going on there, because but Ukraine war is not number one, not even the second topic. The immigration to US is the main thing, and economy. So the people asking the rightful questions that how can we live here? And sometimes the Ukraine war is very far away. But if you explain that if we all going to lose together with Ukraine this war, the war will come to US as well. Not maybe like in practical ways like the battles, but we all will pay together, and the price is much more higher, not only financially but probably also with our troops and our boys.
Talking about Russian influence, you mentioned also their information warfare and how their money moves power and voting in Europe. How about Estonia? As much as I've heard, and I don't have any internal sources, but I have really trust in Estonian police and Estonian security forces. 9th of May, Denbabe, they went without any major incidents. Do you feel that Russia has this foreign influence over our country, and is it successful?
Russia is trying to attack us on all different levels, and I call it like hybrid war. It's already ongoing. We are not just defining it like in the base of the Article 5 of NATO or something like this. It's not military invasion. But we are under the heavy cyber attacks, maybe sometimes more than 100 per 24 hours. But we had a couple of months ago historically the biggest cyber attack ever. And I think that your listeners, they know that in Estonia we are very well developed on digital level. So we have 98% of our public services online. And then Russia attacked our governmental domain, which we are running most of our public services. And can you imagine that within 4 hours we had more than 3 billion, not million, but billion attacks and requests, to shut it down. And we actually dealt with that. We survived. So the level of Estonian cybersecurity and defense is really, really high. The other hybrid examples, Russian special operational units, they are trying, and these services, special services, they are organizing attacks in Estonia. They're hiring people. We have arrested already at the end of the last year more than 10 persons who were guided, financed by Russian secret services to attack our public persons' assets at this time. Our Minister of Interior personal car was destroyed, and many other things we just stopped because our intelligence services are in a very high level and we cooperate a lot. Now, months later, we see and we hear these kind of stories all over the Europe. So Russia special agencies and services, they are already in the meaning of finding the ways how to disrupt our societies, how to divide them. So we are sure that it will continue. One more example, GPS signal. The jamming of GPS. Russia is doing, and of course saying that we are doing because we want to protect ourselves. But actually they are doing it because to intervene as well us, the aviation and many other things. So Estonia has been risen this question as well on EU and NATO level, because GPS today is just a part of our life, and also putting the jamming of that, putting our people's lives in danger. So we have like many different levels of hybrid attacks what we are having from Russia, and also the fake news, these narratives. Estonia has shut down more than 60 TV channels, more than close to 300 web pages, and we are carefully following as well the social media about the Russian fake news and all these narratives. And then the final step is actually our parliament decided last week that we are not letting the Russian Moscow Orthodox Church actions to take place in Estonia, because they are directly guided by the Kremlin. We are not talking about the religion, because Estonia is the most free country about all different rights to have the freedom of belief of religions as well. But this religion, Moscow, not all the other churches, but Moscow Patriarch Church, this is a weapon which Putin is using. So if the main patriarch Kirill is just blessing the weapons and asking everybody to join the holy war, so this is not like religion. This is already the regime. So we are doing all the different levels in Estonia. and we understand that we must be strong. We cannot be feared. We cannot fear anything. So,
from all of these different instances, I would conclude that we are at war. European Union countries are at war. Estonia is shutting down the Russian weapons, like you said, cyber attacks. We're fighting against it. Moscow patriarchy. We're fighting against it on parliamentary level. But in Germany, for example, they have the Moscow patriarchy. They're not even labeling this as a weapon yet, so they don't even know that they're being stabbed. How do you react to that?
Because we are showing as well, like, our initiatives when we do it publicly. As well, these attacks which were organized by the Russian secret services, we made it public. Because already we knew that some similar things are happening in different places in Europe, but we decided to make it public. This is a message that we are knowing that, we are fighting against that, we are strong. And also this is a message for these people, maybe who maybe the Russian secret services wants to target, that maybe they're hiring them and whatever. We know what to do. And actually we really do. And this is the case. So actually there were some attacks in Germany as well. And this debate already were risen a couple of weeks ago. So I think that the other way around, this is a cynical thing, that Putin is the best salesman of the enlargement of NATO, enlargement of European Union, investments of European Union to our defense, and also investments to our hybrid threats, the capabilities. So Putin somehow is actually advocating against himself. And I don't know what he has to win. I know what's the case. But, 3 years ago in European Union, we mainly debated about the farmers' benefits. Now we are having initiative, it's coming as well from Estonia together with France, that we should create the 100 billion defense bonds to invest to European defense. So, and it will happen. So the great change, and only because of Putin.
This is pure irony for me, honestly. I mean, this is the only thing you wanted to not to happen, and this happened. And I don't think by democratic means, by no foreign aggression, we would have gone to that path, honestly. So Swedish people, but they wouldn't have. Yes. They have elected many times, I think, to join NATO.
They have had referendums and through the history, But the case is that this is a very democratical society, the Swedish, long history. More than 200 years neutrality. And then, like scratch, they decided. And because the understanding is real. So what I'm thinking and what we are pushing heavily as Estonian foreign policy, that we must deal now with the new security architecture of European Union and Europe. Of course, transatlantic relations are very important, but as well, Europe, we must do more. And it means as well that this kind of gray areas must go away. So in the future, the world will be very divided more than ever before, but the red lines must be put in place, in the meaning that where is democracies and where are no democracies. But as well, you touched before the United Nations, that we must understand as well, all the people in the democratic world, that we are in minority now in United Nations. So that's a fact. If you follow the resolutions, the votings. So freedom is not granted. Democracy is not granted. It's not just, we've been used to live like this, but actually we must fight for democracy and freedom. And my question is, we actually in Estonian Foreign Ministry, we put together the agenda, which is collecting everything what we're doing. This is actually public. Everybody should go and check it from our Foreign Ministry webpage. And we called it Fit for Freedom. Fit for Freedom. And the main question I asked as a foreign minister with my team was whether we are fitting to freedom or not. That's the question. Because all in the Western world, we are taking that freedom is granted. No, it's not granted.
It feels to me, for freedom, you need to spend. For military, for example, it's a political decision. Every country has the money. If they want to do the political decision and hurt themselves politically to actually be the candidate to take taxpayers' money and put it there, not to the growth of economy, that's a painful decision in politics, and Estonians are doing this. So that is the price, I guess, every career politician has to pay in Europe. And I feel like right now they're not fit for, as you say, freedom, because they don't want to take that burden on their backs.
it's my personal opinion and my experience from the past that if politician would like to please everybody, he or she doesn't please anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And these kind of times as a crisis, it needs a leadership to explain and take decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And also to explain in rightful ways that it's much more cheaper right now to invest to defense and to have in the future the economical growth than actually to have nothing in the future, because war is not something what we want at all. So invest to defense, invest to this strengths. This is very crucial, and that's what we are advocating globally everywhere. That we must now to invest to our capabilities to fight for freedom, and it is very good situation in the meaning that Ukrainians are willing to do it. They're just asking the money, and what we have in Europe and in North America, we have all the money in the world. We have all the money in the world, and we have also the Russian assets, more 300 billion of dollars and euros. So my question is why we don't do it, and the reason is there are still majority who believes that business as usual as it was before, it comes back. It doesn't come back. That's the case. But we have offered as well from Estonian side, and we have done it already, that if everybody, all our allies, are committing for the next years 0.25% of GDP military support, it is doable. Mm-hmm. Nobody needs to even change taxes. We actually increase taxes in Estonia because of that, not because of 0.25, but because of we investing heavily to our defense, like 3.2% of our GDP. So, but if everybody are going to do 0.25%, then we will have annually, every year, $120 billion worth military support, and Ukraine can win the war. So we are advocating for that, and also already pretty many countries are following that, signing the bilateral agreements with Ukraine, as Finland, as Latvia, and many others, and this is a real commitment. So as a conclusion, we have all the money in the world. It is the cheapest and most efficient way to support right now Ukraine, to avoid the future war in Europe, in European, in the meaning Europe is, the war in Europe is already there, but I mean, in NATO.
You mentioned so many things that make me feel, as a citizen of Estonia, make me feel really proud, honestly. 0.25% yearly, it's not like talk, but we're actually doing this, and we're pushing that initiative to other countries also. 3.2% military spending. I mean, Poland is, I think, over 4%, but that's the only country in NATO.
Yes, Poland is doing a great job.
Estonia is what, the third in all of NATO in the military spending of percentage?
Yes, almost, and also we have too many NATO members who are not committing actually 2%, which was agreed during the peacetime. So what we are pushing now heavily, even towards the Washington summit of NATO, is that the lowest level should be 2.5% for everybody. But I would be happy that all the member states are paying at least like 2%. And in that position, I'm totally support Donald Trump, because he is very brutal by his vocabulary, but he's saying the right thing. We must pay for the protection. We must pay for defense.
You just caused half of the comments on this podcast.
Very good. But be honest, all these our listeners, they know as well the history. The question is how brutally the U.S. presidents are saying that. Obama said the same thing. Clinton said the same thing. Biden said the same thing, that we must invest more. But Trump is saying that in a very brutal way. And of course, I'm not supporting this kind of vocabulary, in the meaning, if you're not paying, we are not coming to protect you, and we are not fighting together. So this is not the idea that I'm supporting. But the message is clear. We must pay, we must invest. And this is not because of US, because of ourselves. Mm-hmm. So, but we can do, the GDP figure is honest thing. GDP is measuring the pressure to the society. 3.2% in Estonia is the same that 3.2% in Germany or in whatever countries. So, but we do it because we know we must do it. And this knowledge must be everywhere, because GDP figure is really, really honest thing. Even our GDP is small, in the meaning that 0.25 is a bit more than 100 million per year, but the cost to our society is the same. Mm-hmm. It's the same. So
the cost to a single person, the
Yes,
percentage is the same, right? So
it's the
every
same.
Estonian is carrying the weight more than every American right now, you could say. But of course, this is no shots for Americans or for Germans. This is a call to action.
It's call to action,
yeah.
but also actually the $61 billion package is approximately the 0.25% of GDP of US. But it's not all military; it's some other things. But it's US somehow did it. So
I really agree with the reasoning that America is not Europe's big brother to protect. We have to protect ourselves. And if America wants to help, that's great. But our responsibility is our borders and our continent. I always say this. And I am surprised that I get a lot of views from just Trump supporters because they are more isolationist politics. But we get each other confused here because I am all for global connections. But I think the security... carrying the weight of our security and freedom, fit for freedom, is what we do, where we set the red lines and what we decide right now in the moment.
You're totally right, and I've been many times in US, and I will go again, and mainly meeting not only in DC. I was in Arkansas and some other states, and the case is to meet the people who are asking the right questions. But if you explain that how much we are connected to each other, the US and Europe, never more than we are now, because Europe is creating most jobs in US. Most jobs were created by the European capital, also in the defense industry. So US is connected to Europe a lot. So they are going to lose a lot if Europe is in sorry to say, in a great trouble. I wanted to say in shit, but so it's a bad word. But the case is that we are all connected to. So, and US, if you explain all these figures, people understand. Even a small country as Estonia, I went to Arkansas, and we are buying the rocket systems, HIMARSes, from them. And it's the biggest procurement ever. And actually, we are, as a small Estonia, we are creating jobs in this factory, pretty a lot of them. And so does many other things. So we are so much connected. If the US is investing to the European defense, actually they are protecting themselves as well. But of course, the burden must be shared, and we must do more in Europe. That's clear, and there's no question. But also, I'm coming back to this 100 billion defense bonds. What we initiated is that we can put even like 10% or 15 or 20% of our GDP to defense in Estonia, but it's not good enough to protect actually Europe. And but we are ready to do more. But the case is that I've been asked many times whether we are like afraid here in Estonia, that we are afraid of Russia and so on. Actually, we are not, because we have been living here a couple of thousands of years, and the last 100 years has been only the bad things coming from east, even before. But the case is that I believe in NATO, I believe in EU. I'm totally sure that we are protected more than ever before. We are stronger than ever before. We have UK, France permanent troops here. We have US troops here and everything. And the Article 5 will start working from the first scratch. And this victorious war of NATO against Russia will happen in our territory. We will win the war, but we have a 200 kilometers strategic depth, and everything will happen here, and also the consequences will happen here. So we don't want this war to come here, so let's invest to defense. But if it's coming, then we are ready to fight, but we are not going to do it alone. And this is a principle what we have changed a lot if you compare to the 1939 and 40 when we were occupied. We declared ourselves as a neutral country, and we were just, part of the deal. But we decided in 1991 and 1992 that we will never be alone again. And that's the reason why we are investing heavily to our independent capabilities, but also to international organizations, really. And we are doing the very, very hard work. So never be alone again.
Estonia is doing phenomenal job on that, electing into the EU and into NATO. But you mentioned one very important aspect, which is the NATO doctrine of defense in the Eastern Europe. Before it was reactionary. It was the initiative is with the enemy. We react, we take back our, let's be honest, destroyed territories. Now it is not reaction, it's immediate to fight back, push back from the first second. And it's some of the comments say, I have pro-Russian viewers also, they say, oh, you will be taken in 3 seconds, in Tallinn in 2 hours, right? Well, how? We have in Poland, Latvia, Lithuania and Estonia, more than 4 different NATO countries' armies are in the infantry and armor, and even fighter jets in some cases are in these countries. It's not a reaction, it's a fight back from the first moment.
It is fight back from the first scratch. It is fight back from the first millimeter. And by the conception that we are going to win the war. So we have solid plans. They were adopted during the last NATO summit in Vilnius. And now we have as well Finland, huge military power in Europe, in NATO. We have Sweden, huge military power in the air and also at the sea and under the sea as well. So Baltic Sea is now the NATO lake. So, of course, we need to do more, fulfill all these plans with the real capabilities, and we are doing the great job. Your defense maybe is one question in our region. But the case is the concept of deterrence is that from the first second, not only Estonian soldiers will be killed in the battle, but also the British, French, US, and all the other nations who are now participating in Estonia. And Putin must consider, 10 times before when he's going to do anything, because he's going to be in a lethal contact with the nuclear power in Estonia. So that's the case, and it will work, So that's why I'm saying, and I had a lecture yesterday as well at the high school, and kids, you can sleep peacefully, because Estonia is protected better than ever before. But if there is a war coming, we are ready to fight.
And also to the viewer that if you have seen the effectiveness of any kind of Western missiles in Ukraine, then Estonia has anti-ship missiles that actually have been procured, and a push of a button, and there is a capability in Estonia to sink a measurable amount of the Russian Baltic Sea fleet. This is our capability right now, and it's going to be in the next decade. So Putin will have to think about that also. But to wrap up, I will ask the one final question. I know you're going to Georgia after this. I will ask about your security. Have you changed your security measurements after what is going on in Georgia?
Not really, because I trust Georgian government. In that meaning, I'm trusting Georgian people. But of course, this. If you're going to participate in the mass rallies and so on, so you need somebody who's taking eye on you. So we have security.
Glad to hear that. Glad to hear. Thank you, Margus Tsahkna, so much for taking the time and coming to the podcast. Margus is part of Estonian party Estonia 200, Eesti 200, which is a very, very great party representing Estonian democratic system in the government also. And good luck in Georgia. Thank you.
Thank you very much.